We're back here on Jones and Company, and we are talking about agriculture and trade in the Caribbean, especially since we have BAMSI in Andros, and the president of BAMSI here, who is also our ambassador to FAO, Ambassador Eunice.
Mr. Singh, throughout the region, and I'm glad Mr. Clark mentioned Belize, it's the question of feed.
Mm-hmm.
Big issue in our poultry industry, in our pork industry. However, with the small ruminants, we feel that we can alleviate that through grazing and pasture development. But fundamentally, how is the region going to address the issue of feed?
So I'll give you a famous quote that I learned throughout my PhD. We have to match our available animals with our available resources. For far too long, the Caribbean has been at the mercy of the feed giants. And if you compare, it's like chalk and cheese, because there has been millions of dollars going into research in North America to develop the ideal feed, which we purchase in the Caribbean at a substantial cost. Very little research has gone into producing regional feeds using indigenous material. So we're talking local forages, the tropical forages, which are very, very high in protein. Corn. We have moved away from soybean meal because it's such a costly feed ingredient. And I tell farmers, every time we open a bag to feed our animals, we increase the cost of our meat and the cost of our production.
You know, Mr. Clark, you mentioned earlier about 9/11. We've been hit 2 successive years by these catastrophic Category 4 and 5 hurricanes. Right now in New Providence, most of the farmers here are livestock producers. And I met with some of them, and I told them, I said, you know, you all haven't learned anything since 9/11. Because the constraint right now is feed.
Mm-hmm.
So we now have to import feed to feed the birds and to feed the pigs, and in some cases, the small ruminants. So this issue of feed, we have land in Abaco and Andros that is suitable to produce forest pastures. How do you see us moving in that direction?
But forage and pasture is just one component.
One component, I know, yeah.
I also understand you have a very large fish industry.
Yes.
And fish silage is a very, very high source of protein, you know?
Yeah.
So it's all about looking at what is available and capitalizing, being innovative in the approach to feeding animals. You know? The research has to speak for itself.
Sure.
The research has to be done. All of the conch shells that you throw away, all of those are key ingredients in feed. You see, so you have what it takes. It's simply
we have the raw materials.
You have the raw materials. It's doing the research, getting the data, formulating the diets. It's not impossible.
No.
Isn't it true that we suffer in the Caribbean in relation to agriculture and trade because we have simply not educated our people, Mr. Clark, on their needs and how to address their needs?
Not only the people. I think we also need to do a better job of educating the policymakers about what agriculture can do for the respective countries. That take, for example, this whole issue of feed. That rather than following the United States model of corn and soybean, we are very good at producing rice. Why don't we use rice instead? It's another cereal. Yes, and we can use analysis and so on to top up the different deficient amino acids and so on that might obtain, or as Michelle indicated and so on, well, we can use whatever raw material that we have. It might be citrus pulp, or it might be rice bran, or it might be the reject waste. I see in Cuba, they produce USDA grade A pork, and it is derived as a consequence of taking in all of the swill that comes out of the hotel system, analyzing it for its content, adding what needs to be added, and providing a liquid feed and thing to the pigs. It doesn't in any way detract and thing from the quality of the pork and thing that is produced. And therefore, to educate the people, not only about those kinds of things, what are the options that we have, but that, yes, local is best, because we're supporting our own, that cassava and sweet potato and yams and the other root crops provide you with complex carbohydrates which are better for your health, and therefore can assist you in managing the issues associated with chronic non-communicable diseases. That the coconut water, coconut oil, that these have value in helping you to not only to feed yourself, but also to manage your health. That agriculture can contribute even more than it now is to your gross domestic product. That we have to contemplate on not thinking cocoa, but think chocolate. That we have to move away from this notion that we are primary producers of raw material that we export to the metropolitan countries and re-import refined goods at very, very, very high prices. Yeah. That we have the same brains. And I would argue with you, and I'm certain that everyone in this room would agree with me, that we have better brains than those outside, and consequently that we need to apply these brains to arriving at value-added products which our consumers can take in. That we have the realization that when we look at our food import bill, that most of it is processed food. And that in itself provides an engine for economic development if we develop the capacity and so on to process these foods and so on within the Caribbean. It means that we're going to employ more people. It means and so on that more money is going to circulate in the economy. And that we need to have the space to operate, not only in terms of physical space, but the political space, the trade space, and the financing space. Because I recall, for example, some discourse and so on with a former Prime Minister of Barbados some years ago, who admitted to me, finally, that if at the time of independence, Barbados had invested in agriculture to the same extent that it invested in tourism and manufacturing, Barbados would have been a first world country. In other words, that there needs to be education with respect to the political will which is required and thing for agriculture and thing to be put firmly and truly on the table. What do we do with tourism? We put in tourism infrastructure, and then we lease it to Hilton and to Four Seasons and so on. We pay for the marketing, tremendous amount of dollars the Caribbean government spend on marketing tourism and thing every year. We have a legal framework for tourism. We don't have a legal framework for agriculture that we have for tourism. We provide a set of incentives and a set of regulatory services that ensures that it succeeds. I am arguing that is the same kind of frame that needs to obtain for agriculture, if indeed we are serious about
Mr. Clark, Mr. Clark, you were suggesting that for many a long year, we have had a leadership problem in the Caribbean in the area of agriculture and development. And Mr. Enos, you can respond to this as well. That leadership, we've had a leadership vacuum probably.
No, the reality is, in the Bahamas, for example, the contribution of agriculture to the GDP, you know what it is? In 2014, it was 0.74. That's virtually nothing.
And 30, 40 years ago, it was much higher.
30, 40 years ago, we were contributing 5-6%.
Much higher.
When in 1978, you all may not be aware of this, in 1978, when FAO did a census of agriculture, there were almost 90,000 acres of land in production.
In the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas. Fast forward to 2012, you know what it is? Less than 10. We have lost almost 80,000 acres, right? And I told you this last week, and here it is. And the Chinese want to invest in 10,000 acres, right? We lost 80, they want to invest in 10,000 acres, right? With new technology, where it's going to cost $200 to $300 per acre.
And
they are objecting to it.
They say no.
Yes. You know, it makes no economic or food security sense to me.
Yeah, but here again is the education of the average Bahamian with respect to what the government is about in agriculture and how the country is performing in the agricultural sector. Because our agricultural output is in
bad shape.
Bad shape. Has been in decline for decades. And it's not improving.
It is improving.
Well, BAMSI is there, and you are seeking to improve it.
Yes.
But that is a good distance away, isn't it?
But there's more to agriculture than meets the eye.
Yes.
From the perspective of, yes, if you look at the FAO statistics, if you look at the censuses that are done, they, to my mind, are not capturing the full extent of agriculture. We did a, for example, one of the biggest growing areas within all of the Caribbean countries is the area of potted plants, cut flowers, and foliage plants.
Ornamentals and things such.
Yeah, they don't find themselves in the agricultural statistics. There's been an explosion of growing onions and thyme and marjoram. They don't find themselves in the statistics. The coconuts,
ornamentals.
Coconuts and so on are, since the early demise, over the last couple of years, we are involved in a project in which we are collaborating with the International Trade Center out of Geneva. We got some funds from the European Union. We are working in 9 countries, and we are seeing a significant turnaround in the coconut industry. The private sector have come on board, and the guys are talking about putting in 20,000 acres, 10,000, 5,000 acres, and so on of coconuts. But it doesn't really find its way into the statistics. So we have to not undersell the matter by going back to basics. That is, the data on which we measure the output of agriculture, to my mind, needs to be revisited. I'm not saying to you that sugar has not declined, and banana has not declined, and yams and so on have not declined, but I'm saying that some other things have emerged that we're not capturing, and it's important to capture them. The other component of this thing is that as we increase the amount of value-added products as a consequence of that primary output, that needs to be counted as part of the contribution of the agriculture sector.
Yeah.
So we need to revisit this matter. And once we revisit the matter and the dust is settled, and you're still telling me that you are at 0.7%, then I think I will have to take my hat off. I'm not convinced.
Wait, he made the point during a conversation that he was drinking, soursop tea from Jamaica. And I was telling him in Jamaica, they got stores in Jamaica only sell Jamaican products. All from the food sector, the value added aspect of it. Right now, our farmers are at the lowest end of the value chain. The fresh produce. That's the lowest end.
Let me ask you, and Godfrey introduced something earlier on about foreign participation in the agricultural sector. I don't know if it is happening in other countries in the Caribbean, the extent to which national governments in the Caribbean ought to allow the participation of foreign investors in the agricultural sector.
Let me make this point, and Barton would support me in this, right? Mm-hmm. Saudi Arabia, they own must be half of Ethiopia, because they know they can't grow food. They are securing their countries against the eventuality when you won't be able to buy food. That's what the Chinese are doing. People are securing their food resources outside of their countries. That is why the investment in agriculture is so important for the global economy. Because come 2050, you're going to have almost 10 billion people. And to feed that 10 billion people, you need almost 60 to 70% more food than we produce.